What is up, y'all? Welcome into the College Football Expert Show. I'm Paige Mendonça. That is Adam Kramer from the No Punts Allowed podcast. And we are talking all things college football, post-college football playoff rankings. We've got coach firings. So, Kramer, let's start there. Sharon Moore fired by Michigan for cause, an inappropriate relationship with a staff member. Really, the focus here is what is Michigan going to do next?
And the timing is unique. Bad, good, it's unique, right? Because we've just filled a lot of jobs. And so what you're going to have to do is survey the landscape and see who's interested. The names, of course, Twitter loves these in terms of
Yes.
filling coaching spots, these situations. Kalen DeBoer being tossed around. Of Lane Kiffin, everyone's going to just connect him to every job because that's what we're
Yes.
going to do, right? But DeBoer seemed a popular one. Brian Kelly is resurfacing for a job like this. Jesse Minter, who was very good for them now in the NFL circle. So, because of the timing page, I think it's going to really impact the way they do this. And you and I were talking before the show, how quickly do they move with the transfer
Yes.
portal as a backdrop? I think is going to be a really interesting part of this.
Yeah. The portal opens at the beginning of January. There are coaches probably coaching in the college football playoff that they will see if they are interested. But of course,
Yes.
that a weird conversation to be having. But you do need to sort of hire your guy. That's kind of why we saw last week sort of everybody being hired and people being named because early National Signing Day was happening and Conference Championship Week made it very complicated. But I do think this is odd timing. We do know there was an investigation, and that's obviously why this ended up happening. And, Michigan did its due diligence to make sure they made the appropriate decision in terms of timing. And this is when it sort of happened. So this is one of the best jobs in college football. You and I were also discussing where
Yeah.
does this fall in terms of, I mean, we talked a lot about LSU, Florida, Penn State, all the jobs that were open before. And Michigan in that mix is definitely, I would say, in the top five-ish. It's probably at the 5 to 6 range
Yeah.
in terms of top programs. So don't be surprised if there was someone that was hired that does leave to. I mean, there is a possibility that this could draw somebody from somewhere else because of the caliber of job that it is.
Oh, 100%. It's a really good job. So, top eight. Let's settle on that. But you're right. As we
Yes.
started going through the programs, it's desirable, but the timing is unique. Still, you can get ahead of the transfer portal if you do this well, and we know how important that is to college football. So I think this is going to be a wide net. Other names that are really interesting: John Harbaugh. Go back to the Harbaugh well, right?
Yeah.
Not having a great year with the Ravens. I just like tossing around these names, but these are the kind of names that Michigan is going to go after because it is Michigan. And I think it is an elite job. And they've got some really good young players too, right? We'll see what happens next. But yeah, monumental shake 'em in CFB. And the next part of that happens, by the way, Paige, if they hire somebody who's in a post, then that job has to be filled, right? We know how this
Yep.
goes. A bit of a waterfall reaction here across CFB.
Yeah. Well, let's talk college football playoff bracket because I don't think it's been really talked about enough over the last few
No,
days. Do you? We
no.
obviously did a reaction show and saw the live reveal of the final 12, the conversation around Notre Dame sitting out. All of those things are part of it, but let's talk about just like the decision in general to have Miami where they are, have Alabama where they are, leave out Notre Dame, leave out BYU, leave out, you know what? I'm going to give Vandy the props because I feel
Please
like they
do.
also got snubbed as well. I don't know about Texas as much, but I'm curious after a few days of letting this sort of sink in, where are you at with even the group of fives that did get into?
You know, the decision itself, I get Miami, Notre Dame head to head. It's how we reach this decision. I think people have a problem with, right? And if I'm looking at the biggest issue I have, it wasn't necessarily with what happened on Sunday. It's what happened the previous selection show, where
Yeah.
inexplicably Alabama, after almost losing to Auburn, jumped Notre Dame. That moment felt huge, right? Because what was going to happen in the conference championship game, we realized not much, even though Alabama didn't look good, was monumental. And there was really no good reason for it. You could
Yeah.
argue with against Notre Dame's strength of schedule. I get it, at least in moments. Um, that's the kind of move, if you're a Notre Dame fan, though, that you're still struggling with. And I'm still struggling with because that is if you want to kind of say, well, this was rigged or this is a conspiracy. I'm not going that far, but Lord knows a lot of Notre Dame fans are. It's hard to justify that move, Paige. And so when we look at this right now, and if you're a Notre Dame fan and you look at the way this has gone down, I get why you have a problem with it because in looking at the last couple of weeks, it doesn't feel quite right.
Yeah, no, I understand the frustration. I think the sitting out of a bowl game and such is not really the best way to go about this. And we will talk sort of maybe how to fix it here in a bit. But I do want to talk about the BYU conversation because I think the Big 12 commissioner reacted to BYU not getting in. And obviously, he addressed Notre Dame and their issue that they have taken up with the College Football Playoff Committee and just the system in general. And he said he understood the situation. I think when we got a little bit more of an explanation of why BYU moved, it was mostly because of the fact and that they played against Texas Tech again and lost again, whereas the Alabama Georgia situation, it wasn't two losses versus the same team. And I think that's where the committee sort of had used BYU as, okay, hey, your regular season played a factor, not just conference championship, but I still think strength of record, not strength of schedule, should have played more of a factor for BYU. And I do think that they had a little bit more of a case and probably should have been talked about a bit more. We know that this is all going to change. That's the biggest
Yes.
part of all of this is that the 2026 college football playoff, I guess 2026, 2027 playoff will be decided the format of it in January. So right after the college football national championship on January 23rd, there will be a decision made. The situation with Notre Dame is very interesting because we have seen them go full scorched earth. And let me just say this, it seems a bit odd to me to go so hard at this because of the fact that the next step hasn't been decided. And we know that that conversation about the memorandum of understanding where
Yes.
Notre Dame would essentially get an automatic bid if they were ranked in a certain spot. If the playoff was to stay at 12 or 14, I'm assuming it's going to move to 16 or beyond.
Yes.
Notre Dame is basically saying we're not playing in a bowl game because we want to show you guys what it's like when if we are not treated respectfully when we come up with this new system and we are not given that favor of an automatic qualifier situation, then this could go bad. I don't know that they have that much power. I don't know. I think they have way more power in the situation because before it used to have to be unanimous for this decision in terms of college football playoff amongst presidents and the brand partners that they are with, the broadcasting partners, I should
Yes.
say. And now that doesn't have to be the case. The Big Ten and the SEC really do have a lot of power. So I think coming for the ACC commissioner is a little odd. And I think sure Notre Dame can be a part of an automatic qualifier, but I think it goes along with group of five. We talked about my theory of how to fix this is expand to 16 teams, and then you have five automatic qualifiers. The Power Four, so Big 12, ACC, SEC, and Big 10 get their conference champions in, which by the way, fix your tiebreakers, ACC and
What a
all
mess.
conference. Fix that. But then the fifth automatic qualifier should go to Notre Dame or the highest ranked group of six team if they are in the top 16. If you're not in the top 16, that just becomes an at-large bid. Because I think this idea that we talked about this when we were together this weekend. We're
Yeah.
like, look, we love group of five teams, our group of six. I'm putting the Pac-12 in there. We love them, but we understand why we want the best teams in, and if you want the best teams you can't have straight seeding. That's just not how it's going to go,
No.
and because automatic qualifiers means money and people aren't going to give that up. But let's have the least amount of automatic qualifiers and a bigger at-large field so we are getting the closest to the best teams in.
There's going to be guardrails put in. It's going to expand. There's going to be guardrails put in so we don't have James Madison and Tulane. And I mean no disrespect.
Yes,
Good for
totally.
them. Like changing their entire outlook in terms of the money they're going to make from this. Good for them. Earned. However, it's probably not in the spirit of how this was designed to be. I don't think they ever imagined that we would have these games, and both are huge underdogs. And so, lost in the madness of Notre Dame, Paige, I think those teams were like, "Hoop, nothing to see here." We're talking about
Yeah.
Alabama, we're talking about BYU, Miami, Notre Dame. We're not talking about James Madison. We're not talking about Tulane. So it's going to be redone. Notre Dame is important to college football. There's a balance to
Yes.
be had here. Playoff ratings would be huge. There's no conspiracy. The playoff wants Notre Dame in. It does, right? Like it
Yeah.
really, really does. They are good for college football. Look at the ratings last year, obviously a magical run. It was weird the way that this whole thing went down, and I agree that the response was extreme, reactionary. I will say we're not used to hearing administrations of programs say these types of things and go on a media tour afterwards, especially when you compare it to what we heard Steve Sarkisian say and what we heard out of Vanderbilt, right? Kind of taking this in
Yes.
stride. Very, very different. Notre Dame does carry a lot of weight. They do carry a lot of power. This did not go down well. I think there's a collective bit of failure across the board here in how we've assessed both who should be in the playoff and the reaction sits.
Yeah. I will say also the chat telling Notre Dame to join a conference per usual. And I think that's the thing is I've been saying this since we expanded the playoff. Notre Dame is not going to join a conference
No,
unless they are forced. And let me just say, this committee kind of set it up where the future of the college football playoff could force them to change something. I don't know that it's joining a conference. I don't think that they will, but I do think, and also to the chat's point, beat the playoff caliber teams that you have on your regular season schedule, no matter what, if it's the beginning of the season or not. Totally agree with you guys. We totally agree
I,
with that point.
I'm interested to see if the relationship. Obviously, there's been a lot of public comments, largely from Notre Dame's side, with the odd relationship they have with the ACC. It's an odd scheduling, sort of in enough to be to fill some teams in on the yearly docket. I'm curious if that
Yes.
changes, and could Notre Dame then decide, well, we'll partner with the Big Ten instead, right? Who knows? I think everything clearly. We've seen what Notre Dame has to say about the relationship of the ACC, right?
It's
And
it's bizarre.
it is, and I don't think the ACC, at least right now, is helping Notre Dame's strength of schedule conversation. So, and that's it's just the
No.
reality of the state of the current conference. We've seen in the years past with Clemson and others, it was a little bit of a different story. This year, not so much. And if you look next year, what's coming up, it's a similar discussion. It's gonna be a really good team next year. It's gonna be a really good team that's got to win most of its game because unless something changes drastically, the strength of schedule isn't going to be great again.
Yeah, I do want to say I believe the agreement is five um teams, and I think there was something that happened earlier this year where Clemson is going to be one of them to like improve the
Yes.
strength of schedule. I think it was Clemson and maybe Florida State too. It was
Well,
teams
Florida
to try
State,
and beef up. Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly.
who knows?
In terms of brand, maybe,
Yeah.
but in terms of beefing that up, so it's true. I do think like look, you are kind of affiliated with the ACC when it comes to football. You're not really. Other sports, of course, you are. But in this case, why would the ACC say anything and what not want their best team in when they were potentially not going to get their best team in? It was going to be them left out in their conference championship and tiebreaker situation was bad. They needed to save face across the board. And I think to the Big 12 commissioner's point, he said, I think this is a little egregious, and I am would love to be a fly on the wall for some of the
Oh
meetings
yeah.
that are about to happen over the next couple of weeks when it comes to the future of the college football playoff.
And to
But
tie a bow on it, this is being
yes,
decided in real time. We've had the delay on what we're going to do. Given all that is cratered over the last week, we know that now it's going to be even more reactionary than it was going to be, which is already going to be significant. So stay tuned.
now I'm going to put you on the spot here. Do you think that we get 16 or do you think it goes to 24?
I think it'll be 16. And I
I think,
think
yeah.
that I don't know if it's the right number or not. We're going to have a bubble no matter what. We're going to have outrage no matter what, whether it's 16 or 24. I think 16 is going to be the number.
Yes. I do also just want to say one last thing about the future of the college football playoff. One of the reasons it cannot be just straight seeding, the top 16 teams or whatever they decide on get in, is because of these college football playoff payouts. And
Yes.
fun fact about this year, so because we did straight seeding, the 1 through 4, um, basically the top 4 conference champions still got the $8 million that you get for making the second round. So Tulane is receiving $8 million win or lose their first round game. So they really benefited. You get the $4 million for getting in, but the $8 million for making this second round. And because they do straight seeding, they do give the 4 highest conference champions that $8 million, which is big. That's big money for that conference.
It's a huge check. Shout out to
It
Tulane. Yeah.
it is. Well, let's get into some predictions of the playoff that we do have, not the future of it. Let's focus on what we do have. And we will start by each giving our predictions throughout the entire bracket, which this it's funny because you and I talked obviously a lot about this. We did predictions on the show on Sunday, and that's your initial thoughts. And there's a lot of it that can be chalk, and you're like, okay, the way the playoff is set up, getting two group of five teams in, it's probably going to be chalk. But I feel like there's potential here for some upsets, so we will see. But I mean, do you think there is? I mean, I think that's why also, I think someone said this, I forget who it was, that the reason we have group of five teams is because we want that like Cinderella story. We want that like 16 over the one seed upset and this like big deal. But how realistic is that in college football?
It's a lot to ask, I think, right? Especially sizing up these group of five games. You've got point spreads north of, 3 touchdowns. You've got it's different. It's so much different because it's just, size, athleticism, I think translate more. So to me, it's always going to be a little bit more chalky. And so far, we've yet to really have that moment, right? So, I love it. We're going to watch every game. We saw it last year, however, even right. What was it? Penn State, SMU. You were there. We wanted to try and convince ourselves that that was going to be a game, and it was not. So maybe this is a year where that's going to be the case, but ultimately, I still think it's a lot to ask.
Yes. By the way, in the chat, someone's saying they're not complaining about more football. I think alluding to the
I am with them.
expansion. Hey, and more meaningful football. Let's make
Uh,
play-in games for conference championship weekend instead of conference champions. Like, let's just have regular season champions, all the things. All right, let's do some predictions. So we will start with the first round. I think I will be giving my predictions first. Yes.
a lot of red. A lot of red. Yeah, the
A
red
lot of
bright.
red. That is, yeah. All right. All right. Let's start with Alabama and Oklahoma. When we did these predictions on Sunday, I was leaning Oklahoma. And I don't know why. I know they're giving their whole campus the day off, whether it's staff or students, they get the day off for this game in Norman. I think Alabama, I know watching that SEC game, you're like, but I don't know that they have it. But how many times have we said that about this Alabama team this year where we've seen a performance and we're like, oh, I mean, let's start with the beginning of the season. And I am actually going to take Alabama to win in that game. So I will take that for the first round. Oregon, JMU, I'm going to go the Ducks. I don't think it's going to be that close. I think the spread is
A lot.
very, very large.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a
So
lot.
tough on that. And then we've got Ole Miss and Tulane. We've seen this game before. I know the whole like hard to beat two teams or a team twice in one season, coaching stuff, all of those things aside, still taking Ole Miss in this one. And then where I surprised myself, Miami and Texas A&M. Texas A&M, obviously a very tough place to play. But I think Miami's going to ride the juice of this, at least for the first round. You know what I mean? Like, at least for the first round
Yeah.
of this, they know that everybody is like, Notre Dame should have got in over you. There's all this conversation. Like, I think they're going to have a chip on their shoulder, and I think they're actually going to win. I genuinely think they'll move on in that round. So those are my first round picks. Then, of course, I'm going to continue with Indiana over Alabama. Sorry, what I've seen. I love this team. Anything is possible for this Indiana team, by the way, and
I
obviously
agree.
you can see it here. But and then Oregon, Texas Tech. I am taking Texas Tech. I love this Texas Tech team. Whoo, gets me every time. This team is just completely underrated. This defense is completely underrated. I think that they are going to be completely overlooked. I know Dan Lanning is notorious for giving great pregame speeches, and he's going to have his team ready. But I think this Red Raiders team is ready to make a splash and not just say, "Hey, we're good in the Big 12. We're good on the national level." And I think that's something that will be very much proven in this. And they will continue on. So I have Texas Tech moving on.
I mean,
Huge.
you know how I feel about that team, right?
I
I mean,
know.
yeah, you'll
Fired
see.
up.
Spoiler
Fired
alert.
up. All
Yeah,
right. Ole Miss, Georgia. I'm going to go with Georgia. Georgia is probably one of the teams that you're like, I don't want to run into them in the college football playoff. I think we said that a couple weeks ago. We were like, you know what? Are we not paying attention to this Georgia team? And I think we are not paying enough attention to this Georgia team. So I picked Georgia. To move on. And then, of course, I have Ohio State beating Miami. Other side of the bracket, I have Indiana moving on. I have Texas Tech moving on, but Indiana beating Texas Tech in that game. Then we've got what are we at now? Ohio State, Georgia, and this is
Yep.
where I pull an upset. This is where I have an upset. Sorry, this is a Georgia team that I think is actually getting better by the minute, and I think ultimately the defense was sort of one of the bigger concerns for this team this season and have progressively gotten better. So I'm going to pick the upset here, and then I'm picking Indiana to win it all. We've seen what they can do against a really, really good Ohio State team. I think the Big Ten champs end up being national champions.
What a run for Indiana, by the way. I mean,
Yeah,
truly, I know kind of lost in the hysteria and the debate of the playoff. I think we just kind of really kind of skimmed over the fact that Indiana won the Big Ten
we
for the
did.
like for the first time in what 50, 60 years, whatever it is more. So I mean, incredible run. Those wide receivers making plays. It's there's a ton to like, and the defense is elite. We saw it. I mean, we saw two elite defenses, but Indiana I thought was exceptional.
Yeah. I know. So these are my final predictions. I think this is more me wanting there to not just be straight chalk. So
Yeah.
sorry to the Ohio State fans, but I think Georgia, if I had to pick a team that I felt like was in the right place to be able to work through this bracket, that was going to be the upset pick that I was going to make. But Indiana to win it all.
I like it. I don't necessarily agree with you completely, but I like it. And I do like the fact that you sprinkled in some upsets in there. So
Yes, but
here,
I do.
yeah,
All
go ahead.
right, your bracket. No, no, I was gonna say I also picked Indiana to win the Big Ten championship. So before they beat Ohio State, I had the faith. That's all I'm saying.
Yes, there you go. You've been here for a while. Now here's
Yes,
mine. Somewhat similar, at least on the left side. I've got Alabama beating Oklahoma. If you say you feel good about that game, you're a liar.
you don't.
These are two
Yeah,
teams that have offensively looked like they've really struggled. That environment will be up for it. Of course, Oklahoma has proven that it can beat this team. I just think Alabama will be a little bit better, but they got to figure some things out, Paige. They got to run the ball. Certainly, that's the biggest one. Run the ball, ran for -3 yards in the championship game. So things have to improve. They can't get much worse. Oregon, not much to add to that. I think that's going to be, we saw Oregon do it against Liberty years ago. I think you're going to have a similar game there. Um, on the other side, I do have Ole Miss. Coaching in this game is really interesting because both teams have some really interesting coaching stuff going on. I think the fact that the coordinators are in place still for Ole Miss is a really big deal. And I'm interested to see what they can do. And I'm going to take A&M. The point spread in this game is 3.5 points. I think that's a good line for Miami. What does that mean? The odds makers think it's going to be tough, right? Miami has some renewed life. They've got the offensive and defensive line, I think, to stay up with A&M because A&M's pass rush, when it's on, could be really good. For me, the tipping point in this is probably going to be home field. Going through, and I'll move through quickly. Indiana is going to get through Alabama. Too much, too good. Even with some injuries mounting for Indiana on the defensive side, which is a little bit of a concern. I just don't think Alabama is going to have a chance to score. We both like Texas Tech, right? We both like
yeah,
Texas Tech over Oregon. I'm not sure, other than the championship game, which is going to be interesting. That game to me is one of the most compelling that we could see all year, right?
yeah,
And Texas Tech, you and I are both huge believers in just
yes.
because they can compete defensively.
I do want to say the chat is not as much of a believer in Texas Tech as we are, which we are very much
All
used to.
good.
In the chat, Oregon is going to truck Texas Tech. All right.
Truck, I don't know. Hey, look, Dante Moore is legit. They're good. They're really, really good. That's why it'd be a great game. Uh, Georgia over Ole Miss. Georgia, since they beat Ole Miss, is a better team, right? They've gotten a lot better. Really, really good. Again, lost in the debate of the SEC championship game is how well the Georgia defense is playing. I got Ohio State over A&M. Uh, Look, you can see the bracket how I feel about Ohio State and what we're left with here. Indiana over Texas Tech in one of the truly a defensive charged game. Ohio State over Georgia in a game that's not easy to pick by any means. I like Ohio State, Paige. I liked Ohio State last year heading into the playoff.
Yes.
Uh,
The
yeah, go
the
for it.
chat agrees with you, by the way. They think Georgia would not beat Ohio State, which I obviously picked. You did not. But the chat is in agreement with you that Ohio State is as good as ever.
I think that Ohio State last year got humbled against Michigan. This is different. I don't think they got humbled against Indiana. I think they ran into a really good football team and they made some like heinous coaching decisions. There's no other way to put it. I mean, Ohio State, that was not Ryan Day's best moment for sure. They can fix those things. I think Julian Sand will be better. I think Ohio State will be better. I don't think people would be mad about a rematch here either. That was a
Yep.
great football game. I think it'll be another great football game.
All right. Well, we are going to break down some of the players playing in the college football playoff, players that will take over the playoff. We know we have the Heisman finalists already decided, and we will decide that this weekend. But we have come up with a list of a few players that we think, and some of my list features what I view as Heisman finalist snubs, by the way. Here are the finalists: Jeremiah Love, Fernando Mendoza, Diego Pavia, and Julian Sayin.
Not
You
bad.
think who do you think's going to win?
I think it'll be Fernando Mendoza. I think it's gonna be closer than people think. He's like minus 1,000 in terms of a favorite right now. I think Diego's gonna make a push. I think the number is gonna be closer than maybe the odds makers think in this one. How about you? Do you think any chance of weirdness here?
No. I think people are going to
Straight
go with
no.
Mendoza. Well, it's because of we talked about this before on our podcast. The Heisman is also so much weighed on like team success.
Yes.
And I think winning the Big Ten championship, and I think a lot we talk about Heisman moment. Fernando Mendoza has had the opportunity to have Heisman moments. I think if Julian Sayin maybe played some of tougher opponents in the Big Ten, then he would have had those as well. Not to say that Penn State's like the toughest thing, but seeing that final drive that sticks out as a
For
Heisman
sure.
moment where you keep that composure, you get your team, you beat Ohio State and that defense in the Big Ten championship, that's a big deal. I think despite what everything else says, I think voters do think about those type of things and those quote Heisman moments. Not saying that I think it's the best way to vote for this, because I do think the best player in college football isn't even a finalist. So that's I think it's team success and ability to have a Heisman moment. I do think he'll end up winning it.
And he made some plays. His wide receivers have helped him out
Yes.
tremendously also. But I agree. Penn State, not just the last throw, and that play still doesn't feel real. In the Big
Yeah.
Ten championship game, when he was able to get some time, finally, he was able to connect. And those wide receivers, again, are exceptional. But he's been awesome. And watching him with a Heisman mic, by the way, will be, he's got some microphone game. So it will be an elite speech, I think, if he's able to pull it off.
Yes. Another an elite speech that would happen would be Diego Pavia for
Oh, of
sure.
course.
And also loved him saying that if one of the group of five teams won the college football playoff, that he would give all of his NIL money to said program. So just a fun fact there. But let's start with my list of players who could take over the CFP. And I'm going to start with a guy who I think was majorly snubbed and should be in New York, and that's Jacob Rodriguez. Why are we not? I mean, this guy is the key to the success of that team. Sure, that defense has a lot of dudes. That is not to be understated. But I think again, we saw in the chat a lot of people picking Oregon. I don't think people really understand how good this Texas Tech defense is, and this guy is a huge part of it. I think he should have been in New York. If we're crowning the best player and the biggest player that has the best impact on their team, I think he is that guy. And I think it's unfair that this has become a quarterback award. And look at team success. You got this Texas Tech team in the college football playoff and getting a first round bye. Like the jump for this team and the impact that this guy and everybody has had. I really do think that we've talked a lot about Indiana's turnaround. We're not talking enough about everybody's too focused on the dollars, not the actual wins, not the actual success. So I'm excited for that to be on full display in the college football playoff. Next, I've got probably
Yeah.
Heisman
Yeah.
winner Fernando Mendoza. This is just a no-brainer because if Indiana wins a national championship, it's because of this guy. It's because of his leadership. And I genuinely think that he is someone who could take them to a national championship. I did see in the chat earlier that someone said Indiana's light has shined as bright as it's going to, which is fair. You can say that it's shined as bright as it's going to already. That's fine. I disagree, and I think he's going to be super impactful. Next up, we've got Bo Jackson, Ohio State. Here's the thing. I feel like they need to trust this guy a bit more.
Yes.
All reliable. Sure, I understand there was a fumble in the red zone during the season. I totally get it. However, this is a guy that, sure, the touchdowns maybe aren't there in terms of stats, but someone they can lean on, someone they can get them where they need to be and be in a place to score. I think they need to lean on him heavily. Next up, we've got Gunnar Stockton. Also, kind of think this guy has a Heisman case. Don't think it was the entire year, so feel like it's fair. However, what he's done to finish out this year to get them the spot that they're in the college football playoff, I think it's been incredibly impressive. I don't think he's been getting enough credit, and that's a lot for me to say about a Georgia quarterback. It takes a lot. And they've won national championships, by the way, with worse quarterbacks and guys that are game managers. Gunnar Stockton has proved to be a lot more than that.
I love your list. And I agree with Gunnar Stockton, by the way. I thought he played well thrown into action last year in the playoff, right? Like his team let him down. A little different this year. They've upgraded skill talent. And he's obviously upgraded his game. Here's
Yeah.
my list. Everything you said about Rodriguez, but for David Bailey at number one,
Yeah.
right? And truly, and that's probably hurting their case as they've got multiple
Yeah.
dudes. Third in tackles for loss, second in sacks, one of the best, if not the best acquisition in the offseason all year. He just pops everywhere you see, and the production is great. And I think his impact is far greater. And that is why Texas Tech is a problem. When you look at our lists, it is striking to see two players on the defense among all these stars making the moment. Jeremiah Smith, obvious, right? 144 yards against Indiana. For as little as Ohio State scored and for as well as he played, one of his best outputs ever. The dude's just an absolute force of nature. Was great in the playoff last year. Is only getting better. 12 touchdowns. They need to force him the ball more, and that's what I think they were able to do. Which is why it's so weird, Paige, that they didn't score more points. I think you need to lean on this guy, and I think you need to get creative. They did that last year. Get him short passes, deep throws, all those different things. Um, they know the drill. Julian Sand knows what he's doing, by the way. He'll be fine. They're going to connect quite a bit. Speaking of connecting, Dante Moore, I that throw against Iowa is ingrained in my brain, and it's why I wanted to put him on this list. Not because he's third in completion percentage, 25 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. This is a guy that's not played a ton of football, and I think about that throw a lot, and I think about the way the offense operates. And I just absolutely love his game. Well, now, as we talked about this Texas Tech game, this is a chance to kind of step it up, right? And I think obviously Texas Tech is really good, but here's a guy with so much skill and so many unique weapons around him, and they should be healthier. That if they're healthy, look out for him. And last but
Yes.
not least, Elijah Surratt. So we talked about Fernando Mendoza, but let's talk about the Indiana wideouts. When you look at his yardage from a year ago, it might be down. His touchdowns are up. He scored a touchdown in 7 straight games. And you could throw other, Omer Cooper, Charlie Becker on this game on this list as well, because they spread the ball around. But I love him because he's going to go up and he's going to do that. He's going to just catch touchdowns when you need him to. And it seems like Fernando Mendoza in a bind. Maybe he's not targeting him as much as he did as they were last year. The
Hmm.
guy just makes plays.
I agree. And I think the Big Ten championship was a great display of his abilities. We, of course, there are lots of players that you could have in there, but I do think there are some that are just going to stand out amongst the rest and are certainly X factors when it comes to their teams moving on to the next round of the college football playoff. But this offseason, though it's been busy in terms
Yeah,
of head coaches moving, we did get the transfer portal moved to the start of January, which, by the way, last year it was literally the day after the announcement of the college football playoff. So this week feels a little nicer, honestly, from a coverage perspective. But how much do you think? I think we've already started to see some names. How
yeah.
much do you think the movement of head coaches is going to cause portal chaos, or do you think it's going to be a little less than last year because NIL is set a bit differently and there's maybe not as much cash being thrown at these teams because it's on the books now?
Of course, it's all on the books now. Wink, wink.
Yes, books.
Yeah, no, still, it's opportunity. So Lane Kiffin, and you're right, there's some guardrails in here, but Lane Kiffin is a guy that offensive skill players are going to want to play for. Quarterbacks are going to want to play for. This is still going to be a ton of movement. And yes, you've got now budgets to manage. But because what 20% of the coaches have changed, right? I mean, I think every year we're going to reshuffle the decks, and it's a little bit later, but now we're starting to hear names. So even though, yes, we've put a little bit of a ceiling on this, let's not kid ourselves. This is going to be absolute chaos. And yeah, it's a little bit later, but we still have other playoff games that it's going to interfere with. So it's still a disruptive calendar, to say the least.
Yes. You have thoughts on one Sam Levitt who
I
is
do.
potentially leaving Arizona State. I feel like we can say confidently that he's probably leaving, with all the rumors that have come out of ASU after that sort of hit X. But your thoughts here?
There they are, right? Follow me. I just when you look at how what offenses with Lane Kiffin succeed, including this year at Ole Miss, it's a quarterback with mobility that can complete passes. That is tough. Sam Levitt is all of those things. You and I have talked about him for years. I think the absolute world of him, and I think Sam Levitt understands his value now. And
Yeah.
that could be with LSU. It could be with someone else. Quarterbacks like him are in line to make what, $3-4 million. Again, this is a brave new world. It's interesting to say out loud. I love the idea of pairing him with Lane because I think it would be good for both of them. Lane needs to make a splash at that position. It didn't work out this year with Nussmeier obviously under Kelly. Go big, and they don't get much bigger than that.
Yeah. Lenore Sellers, another name that has been tossed out. Likely not going to the draft due to his season. Do you think South Carolina can keep him? Do you think he goes elsewhere?
I think they can keep him. They're obviously trying to make coordinator
Yep.
change to more passing friendly. Looking at his statistics today, page like everything was down. Pass yards, rush yards, pass touchdown, rush. Like it was not. It never looked quite right. The talent is overwhelming. Lenora Sellers would be one of the more compelling players to go and get, and is going to make millions of dollars to do it. What is the right fit? We'll have to wait and see. He might just need a fresh start. That's kind of the thought, right? I know
Yeah.
it's worked at times there, and they're doing everything to make this a compelling offer for him. I do wonder, however, if he's going to look around and find a situation that he likes and say, "Wow, it's a lot of money, and I just need something that's going to set me up for better NFL success." But who knows? Like it's proven that he works there as well, right?
Yeah.
They have some good talent. They have good talent around him. So I think that's a really interesting one to follow.
I think what's going to happen is sort of like the coaching situation that we had this season, where once one major domino falls, and I'm not saying that Sam Levitt's not a major domino, but I mean like a Lenora Sellers or James Franklin obviously is going to go after anyone really because he's proven recruiting wise he's a great recruiter and players love to play for him. So we will see what they do, but there's going to be one guy that maybe we're not expecting to move, that makes the jump from a big program, and it's going to cause just a ripple effect. And hey, maybe we have another trade like we did with UCLA and Tennessee. You never know. But things like that, I feel like that's what's going to happen. But I will mention, I do think the transfer portal chaos last year was a bit different because of the fact that the amount of money that was being thrown out and the gap of money
Yes.
was large. And I'm not saying that that stuff's not being thrown out now, but before there were not rules and regulations or anyone monitoring any of this. And it was basically like front load. That's why we heard about these roster numbers, because before that House versus NCAA settlement was set, there was a lot of money being thrown and people were trying to get that done as soon as possible. So the transfer portal might look a little different. Of course, will happen during the college football playoff, but we appreciate you guys hanging out with us. We enjoy talking all things college football and the latest and greatest. Please enjoy bowl games. Bulls are not dead. Enjoy
No.
them, bet on them, have the best time. Kramer, any parting thoughts?
I love that you gave the bowl season a shout out, right?
Yeah, it's
We
important.
have to fix it. We have to figure out a way for it to live on. We do love bowl season. It is hard to bet on. It is harder to follow. The games do still matter. I've got all sorts of ideas that we'll save for another day. But in the
Yes,
meantime, while we have it, even if Notre Dame's not playing in it, enjoy more football. It's more football games. At the simplest core, that's what we want.
exactly. Well, for Paige and Adam, thank you so much for hanging out with us, and we will talk to you guys next time.